assume it's, I mean, can you get other audio going? That's the, whoa,
yes. Oh, there we go.
I had my speaker set on my headphones. There we go.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Perfect. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
If you can introduce yourselves to the world, since not a lot of people show up live for the very first one. However, we find that a lot of people have been watching this later on. So introduce who you are, even though I gave you a little introduction, but go for it.
Sure. Yeah, so we are the Boilermaker Rube Goldberg team. We've been doing this competition for a while now. Zach here is actually alumni of our team. He did quite well in his time here, and we're trying to do the same. I'm Cray Dirksen. I'm the captain of the team, and this is
Zach Wilson. I'm the assistant captain.
Yeah.
Name, by the way.
It gets confusing when we're like, oh, Zach this, Zach that.
I mean, you can just always say the cool Zach. I mean, no. No. It's, I understand. You just, ZC works. However you want to refer to it. Well, it's wonderful to have you guys. Congratulations again to last season. It was an incredible contraption. As you've probably, knowing you guys, oh, there you go. They still have last year's machine behind them. So in a little bit, I'm going to pull up a playlist where if you aren't familiar with the 2024 contest, you can actually check out every last single minute from the Nationals and see every team, including the Boilermakers, who, you guys had just, it was spectacular. There's no question about it. It's very well worth the watch. But anywho, I'm sure you guys have questions because I updated the rule books and there's some changes. So what do you got for me?
I don't think we have that many specific questions, but just I think we would like to hear from you what the biggest changes are from last year to this year.
Yep, absolutely. So what I kind of did was I summarized everything for everyone, because last year there were different sizes for each division. There were different step regulations that you needed to have. There were different rules enforced for disqualifications. There was instances where penalties occurred at the Nationals, and penalties occurred, but in the rule book, there actually wasn't any deduction included in it. And so those teams ended up scoring higher than they should have. So what I tried to do was just summarize it into this one chart and really just standardize everything. And one of the main things was really just making almost every division the same. Everyone wants to build a really cool machine. And if you want to be a part of it, we don't want to limit it. We actually found that the elementary students and the middle school students, it can be hard to create those 15, 20 step machines. And even collegiate, I know Boilermakers, you've been doing it for, the team's been around since 1998 for anyone who's curious. So hitting the 20 step mark was no issue at all. But we actually lowered it to 10, and that's to encourage more teams to participate, even if you are at that introductory level. So that's been the number one change from there. There's no maximum step count. We don't want to set a limit on that for any division. That being said, still the recommendation is keep it under 125 steps, just because we'll talk about visibility, as you guys will know, and everyone else watching. We want the steps to be visible. It doesn't have to be these big, gigantic contraptions that pack 300 steps in there. I don't know who's to blame for that monstrosity. Oh, yeah, hi, that was me. We packed 300 into a machine once, and let me tell you, you could probably only pick out 50 of them. So anyway, from there, the maximum number of runs in the past, in the apprentice division, we only let them have 2. But again, they're practicing to become part of the real divisions. And with it, it just felt to do 3. In fact, I let them have 3 anyway when I was the MC for the event. So jumping in really quick, we have an electronics teacher. So let me bring their comment up really quick. I'm an electronics technology teacher. 6 of my students have formed a team. In addition to our mechanical machines, may we use electronic devices such as motors, solenoids, audio speakers, etc.? Absolutely, yes. We welcome that. We encourage it. And in fact, it comes up to another point. This year, for the first time in a very long time, you're actually allowed to incorporate programmable logic controllers, or PLCs, microcontrollers, whatever you may call them. We do welcome it because part of our contest, we really want to make it STEM oriented. We want to make it, it's not just about the mechanical interactions, but trying to incorporate several different backgrounds. And we'll get to that in a little bit about the different types of energy transfers. But in short, to answer your question, absolutely yes. It's kind of go back on myself. Those PLCs and microcontrollers, we're testing the waters with them, I should say. And right now, use them only in an aesthetic component. If you use them as part of your energy transfers, you're going to get a deduction. Just use those little elements as kind of bonus elements, so on and so forth. But great question, Terry and Tate. And hello, Zooming, whoever you are. From there, moving on. So the minimum number of team members, apprentice, we only need one. You're just starting off. From there, if you are any other student in any other division, a minimum of 3 members, and a maximum has been lowered. We actually had 20 members as the top from last year. We've lowered it to 15. What we found is we want teams to kind of spread out. We do want to encourage more teams, and I think Purdue can speak, and me especially from all those years ago, having a team of 20 individuals at once. What do you think? Did that workshop ever get packed?
Yeah, we have all-nighters that we plan throughout the year where everybody comes in, and we built a new workspace this year because of how packed it was last year.
Oh, wow.
So, yep.
Amazing.
15 members.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
I will swing by at some point.
Great.
But yeah, just having 15 members, it limited it. It made it actually more friendly for the regional contest as well, which I'll get to in a minute. But if you are a team thinking to register, we actually encourage you to register ASAP because we have a dedicated person who is looking for host locations all over the place. So if we see a team is registered from, say, Maryland, we're going to start working to get a host location in that area. And in fact, I'll kind of spread the news right now. We've changed from the National Rube Goldberg Contest to the World Championships because, honestly, the excitement and just the outreach has exploded. We're proud to announce that we just added South Korea into our international program. We have Australia. We're in talks with at least 5 other countries, not yet confirmed, but when they are, they'll be posted. And so we are turning this into the World Championship Rube Goldberg Machine Contest, where not only the winners from the regionals will participate, but in fact, teams from around the world. And we're just trying to encourage more teams in the location. For Purdue, if you remember from last year, how there was all that audience seating that more or less didn't get filled all the way, we're going to utilize that to incorporate more teams, have more teams available for that, and kind of make it into basically rows. And in fact, if we get enough teams, we're going to try to split it into 2-day event where it'll be apprentice and Division 1 on one day and Division 2 and collegiate on the next. That's, of course, dreaming big if we get enough teams, but we're getting close. And we're actually getting a lot of sponsorship. So it's fingers crossed on that. We're just letting everybody know that that's the exciting news that you're now a part of the World Championships. Yay. And you're still getting those big ass trophies as well, which.
Oh, good.
Yes, those big trophies are a huge selling point we found.
Quick question about regionals. Do you know when those dates might be available to everybody?
Absolutely. So all teams will be notified of your regionals roughly around January 1st, something like that. And you're going to have at least a month because all regionals have to occur between February 1st and March 19th. I'm going to say night. Let's scroll to that page really quick. I believe it's March 19th. Sorry. I just want to double check that I wrote that correctly. March 23rd, Sunday, March 23rd. I'm thinking of the last year. So all regionals have to occur in that 6-week time span, roughly 7-week time span. And we'll let everybody know by January 1st. That being said, if we have a host sign up sooner, we're going to pair you with that host as soon as possible. What we do find is a lot of our hosts, in order to get their funding, they don't sign up until December. We're working on it to get them to sign up. If you are a host here and you're watching this, sign up sooner rather than later so that we can sign our teams up because we do have a ton of teams already signed up, which is incredible. And we want to pair them to our regional hosts. But anyway, so summation answer being, you'll find out January 1st. And then regionals will happen between February 1st and March 23rd.
Alrighty.
Good question on that. Same as last year, if we can't find a host for you, if you find that you're out of 100 miles of the area and you don't want to travel financially, if you're not able to, then we will be able to do the remote regionals again, and that'll still give you a pathway into the World Championship. So that option is still available. That being said, we do have a dedicated person trying to get all of everybody into a program. Terry with another one. Should the online teams also register ASAP? If so, is all the registration info on the website? Absolutely. So if you're part of the online competition, you don't have to register right away at all. In fact, you don't have to register, period. Just submit. Submit whenever you're ready. Going to that page really quick. So going to that, if you are part of the online contest, that one's here. There is no registration, just basically submit when you are ready. And it's just create your video, follow the rules, and then do the submission page. And that is quite literally it. So going back to that one, going back to the Rube Goldberg question. The cool thing about the online contest is I really push for that, and I'm glad to make it happen. Anybody in the world, not just students, are welcome to participate in the online contest this year. So if you are a professional Rube Goldberg builder, the like two of us that are in the world, if he wants to participate, he's more than welcome. We've opened up a 5th division, and that's the Friends and Family division. So anybody, anywhere can be a part of this contest, because previously it was just open to students, and thought, what the hell, just the more the merrier. Going back to the summation page, however, so with it, control electrical arcing, collegiate, that's the same thing. Theatrical presentation, the single runtime, those are all the same from the past years. You get 3 minutes to run your machine, and then your presentation is 2 minutes. We're really going to do a bigger push towards the verbal presentation, as well as really getting that thematics in there. And I'll explain that in the rule book in a minute. For the animal component, that's going to be the big one for this year. If you are a part of the live contest, you cannot have a live animal or a taxidermied animal, a previously alive animal, any form of such. There are a ton of ways that you can incorporate an animal. In fact, you're allowed a volunteer in the machine, and we're also encouraging the volunteer be a part of it in terms of you're actually getting scored if you have a volunteer. Your volunteer is more than welcome to dress up as said pet. So keep that in the back of your mind as kind of a fun way to solve the task. No, nothing to stop you there. But all you have to do is feed a pet. You have to put it in some sort of bowl. You need to just make it clear that you're feeding whatever you could be doing could be feeding an animal. We're likely going to see a lot of cats and dogs, stuff like that. So again, be creative, think outside the box as, what kind of pet might be available to you. Political references, the election year. So just always got to say that. For the love of God, please don't make our lives a nightmare with that again. Objects flying across the boundary, go nuts. If, as long as you're going to be safe, water droplets flying out, not a big deal. If you have a ball, leave the boundaries. You work for months on these projects. I've never thought that you should be faulted on it, and that continues on. Your regional hosts may have something to say about it. They'll indicate that to you when the time comes, but for the most part, all of them are on the same scale as us with, just have fun with it. Like I said, the programmable logic controllers, aesthetics only. You can use them, keep them, just don't go overboard with it. And the reason being is just a lot of schools don't have that ability to use them. They might have the know-how, they might not have the knowledge. Of course, we welcome you to learn how to use them and how to incorporate them. But, for the schools that don't have that advantage, a team with, say, 100 in their machine, our judges are going to be looking at, hey, did you overdo it with this? Because it's not a programming contest. It's not a coding contest. Rube Goldberg, and that's all about those energy transfers from one object to the next. That's what we really care about. And step-list submissions before the contest. Instead of printing them, just email them in advance. Let's just, save on paper, stuff like that. That's the boiled down version of it all. With it, I can start going through the rule books unless you have any questions at the moment.
I don't think we have any more. If we think of any, we can put them in the chat.
Sounds good. Awesome. And then I can take you guys off. It's such a pleasure to see you guys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, good luck to you. Good luck to everyone. And I'm excited to see what you and everyone comes up with, because I look back on that 2024 contest and there's some really good machines.
There were. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Always. Take care, guys. All right. More of just me. So the rule books, as you saw really quickly there are all the rule books posted online. They're divided up into everybody's division. That being said, they're virtually the same, and that is by design. But, be sure that you click on your division. Let's do collegiate, because I know the collegiate guys are here at the moment. What we are asking, because like I mentioned, we do have all the international teams. We have these international contests. Regardless of whatever country you're from, we do ask you to register through the Rube Goldberg website. Now, that form can be found right there. It can be found on our website. But right away, like I said, register ASAP, because that's going to tell us that, hey, we have an excited team. We're ready to go. And that tells us, okay, if we don't have a host nearby, we're going to work to get you a host. Or if you're a team that wants to do it, all you need to do to host your own event is actually to have 3 teams of just a minimum of 3 members each. So you can host your own regionals. And in fact, we lowered our hosting costs this year. We dropped it from $500 to host an event down to $25, really making it accessible for anyone. Just again, it's our goal to make this sustainable for anybody that wants to participate in these contests. But again, if you are going to be a part of the contest and you know it already, register. Again, it just helps us out tremendously. We do ask that everybody registers by January 17th. That gives us time to let the hosts know that you are coming. They can get everything set up and prepared. It's a behemoth of a rule book. I want to make sure that I include everything as possible. So if you're familiar with the contest, if you've been in it for a while, I tend to write them longer. Like I said, I do write the rule books, and I just try to pack in as much information so that it just helps everyone throughout the process. But again, if you do have a question at any point during the season, not just through my 6 Q&As, send them to me, zach@rubegoldberg.org. I'm more than happy to answer them. We have a dedicated staff that also can answer any of your questions. So, because building a Rube Goldberg machine, not the easiest thing in the world, but honestly, I think it's one of the most fun things that you could do. Like I mentioned, the annual task this year is feed a pet. Super exciting. I'm wildly looking forward to it. If you've never played the video game Rube Works, this is actually one of the levels from that video game. I designed this level myself, fun fact, where this is a unique way to feed your pets. And it involves a cat, an octopus, penguin, bees, and a little dog, none of which can be used in the live contest, of course. But hey, it's a wonderful, fun thing. Team registration, very simple. Fill it out on the website. There is a registration fee this year that does help offset our costs, because personally, out of pocket last year, I spent a small fortune in order to make this contest possible. So in order to make this possible, we do have our regional hosts. They're having to pay less money, but the offset is that our teams now pay a registration fee. Ultimately, though, it balances out, and in fact is cheaper for the teams, because a team had to pay the regional host a registration fee, which was often $200 to $300. And we're only asking $49 per team for the apprentice and $99 per team for divisions 1 through 3. So ultimately, it works out that we're able to fund the contest, make it way better. We're already planning some amazing things. It's cheaper for everyone to be involved. And yeah, I'm really excited about that too, because I don't want to go broke doing this. I would love not to do that, but I also want to make sure that this gets to as many people as possible. So if I do go broke, then whatever. At least everyone had fun, right? From it, like I said, you got to compete in a regionals no matter what. So either it be in person or through the remote regionals. We are looking to have every single person compete in a live one. But one way or another, you've got to go through that in order to enter the World Championship, which will be this year. Happy to announce that it is on April 5th. I had to look it up. I just forgot, because last year was April 6th. It's really similar. We already know our nationals date. We know that it's going to be at Purdue University. We know that's going to be Saturday, April 5th, 2025. So if you know that, you want to be there, both your team or just a spectator, start planning now. Prizes and awards. We just got an amazing sponsorship just this past week through the Purdue Engineering Department, whereby they're now offering scholarships to our 3 younger divisions in order to make it onto college. They're offering $2,000 to the apprentice division winners, $3,000 to the Division I, and $5,000 to the winners of the high school contest. So already amazing. Just it's September, and we already have that kind of prize money to offer. In addition to, like I mentioned, just these gigantic trophies that literally were the size of our apprentice team, girls from California. And yeah, so prize money and amazing trophies. Not to mention, we're now offering more dedicated awards. So not just People's Choice, but you're going to have the opportunity to win a heck of a lot of other things. I'm currently writing the rubrics. I should be able to say the word rube, I think. I'm currently writing the rubrics for each of them, but we're going to give out for each division. Each division is going to have the opportunity to win a creativity award, hilarious award, the best starting step. We've never really focused on the start of machine. We've always focused on the finale. But it's a way to get more people to win more awards, feel like, all that effort that you put into it, you're going to get something out of it. Perseverance, i.e., if your machine fails and fails and fails, but you keep on trying, there's a reward for that. I've been on that end. 2009, when my machine was a part of the contest, boy, nothing went right. And I tell you, my team had all the heart in the world, but we were certainly dejected. And, there felt like that needed to be recognized. Artistry, of course, because this is a Rube Goldberg machine contest, and Rube Goldberg was a cartoonist himself, and naturally the best final step. On top of that, of course, the People's Choice Award, where the audience will have a chance to vote, and the Contraption Master Award, where that's my award. I get to decide one. And I already wrote the rubric for that. But with it, I'm going to personally build you a custom novelty trophy. Now with it, that's going to be one trophy across all divisions. It's not one per division. That's just going to be one for the overall contest. Whoever I feel meets the description, best meets the rubric that I created here, you're going to win a specialty trophy created from me. Hopefully prize money as well. Whoop, I forgot to share the screen. Hopefully some prize money as well if I'm able to put it in, but ultimately I want it to be a really fun trophy that I can give to everyone. And as more awards show up, these wow, I can't talk at all. These rule books will ultimately be updated as we go on. The rules will stay the same, but as I said, as I create those rubrics for each of the awards, I will post them and I will include them in the links here. Something that we've never done before that ultimately we probably should have is a dedicated calendar, because people are part of this contest year in and year out, and people want to know the dates. You want to get planning, and we've really stepped it up this year. I'm quite proud of the whole team in that we released the task and the rule books probably 2 to 3 months earlier than ever before. So anybody can already start planning these things. If you've not started planning already, get started. You still got plenty of time. Don't get me wrong, but hey, like I mentioned, there's the 6 live streams, which, hey, we're watching this one right now. Hosts have until January 1st to register. Team registration closes the 17th, and all the contests begin on February 1st. That way, hosts and teams have a chance to register. No host can start a contest before the teams have registered. So kind of fixing that problem from last year. And we're going to announce the task maybe on June 1st, maybe even a little earlier, because we've got some really cool sponsors lined up for 2026. I obviously can't share them, but it's going to be a really cool task if they go through. So everyone keep their fingers crossed. And then for next year, we're just going to keep it the same, as team and host registration is going to start opening up in June, if not earlier. With it, very same rule book as last year, where it outlines everything. Team members are the only ones allowed to build, handle, be a part of the machine, etc. Coaches and chaperones are not considered team members. We do have instances where team coaches have helped build the machines or set the machines up. And last year we didn't have a penalty associated with it. So for this year we do. If Anybody who is not a team member is found to be touching the machine or having built the machine, there's a 20-point penalty incurred to the final scores. In fact, we'll get through the scoring in a little bit, and there'll actually be a separate Q&A that'll go through it more, in more detail. But all penalties are deducted from the final scores. So the judges and referees have nothing to do with them. They do their scoring, and then the scorekeeper will do their deductions later on. So going through, we kind of covered all the rules as before. Specifications, nothing really different. Only thing I like to point out is the Rube Goldberg versus chain reactions. Rube Goldberg never used dominoes in any one of his cartoons. And while I know some amazing domino artists, hi Lily, if you're watching, dominoes aren't really a good part of a Rube Goldberg machine, especially for this contest, because they're the most prone to failure object that could possibly incorporate it. So we're just trying to set up teams for success versus failure and really just limit those. And I'm talking the little tiny plastic dominoes, anything like that. You're more than welcome to do domino style interactions, but just use everyday objects, notebooks falling into each other, VHS tapes. If you know what a VHS tape is, those work brilliantly. And for more clarification, as always, I put the rule footnotes to really try to emphasize everything that I'm talking about. Again, if you have any further questions, reach out to me via email. The programmable logic controllers, for example, I've really tried to spell out in quite literally a half page. Again, using these microcontrollers for aesthetic purposes only. And the logic should be that you're thinking of them as a way to amplify your overall theme and your presentation versus making your machine more reliable. What I mean by that is we had an instance in 2007 where a team included a PLC for, it was a step transition where the dominoes had to fall. And this microcontroller was there. If the dominoes didn't fall properly after X amount of seconds, then the microcontroller kicked in and started the next step anyway. So in a place where there should have been an intervention or a place where the machine failed, the machine ended up working anyway. And that's just assembly line. That's cheating, so to speak. And we never want that. And that's why we're, for the first year where we're reintroducing PLCs into it, we're just taking it slowly. We're dipping our toes into the water. And we're just letting them be for aesthetic elements only. So, if you want to add sounds, lights, smoke effects, these are going to be brilliant for those sort of things. I think it's going to really up the kind of the presentation that teams are going to be allowed to use. With it for this year, so at regionals and national, or regionals and the world championship, again, there will be, if you were part of it last year, there's going to be a marked boundary where your machine needs to fit within those taped off boundaries. If it doesn't fit within that boundaries, no matter what orientation you set it, you're going to lose 20 points. It cannot rest on those lines or outside those lines whatsoever. So just making that very clear. There was an instance this past year where teams set it up, but then kind of twisted it and it didn't fit. Now, the other thing too was last year we disqualified teams if it didn't fit within the boundaries. You work all these hours and months and you bring it to the, you bring it to Purdue University. It never felt right to outright disqualify teams. So what we did was we changed it to 20 points because overall it scored out of 200. 20 points is 10% and you're pretty much guaranteed not to win if you have any one of these penalties associated. So, it balanced out, etc. Like I've been mentioning, this is the contest information, talked about the referees and judges, certainly can read about this in more detail. I just talked about the scoring. For those not familiar with the contest, we have judges and referees. Judges are scoring everything subjectively based on their own personal opinion, whereas the referees are objective. They're looking at all the fact-based elements and taking them off the boxes. So, can something exit the 10 by 10 volume and then re-enter? Yes. Absolutely. So as long as your machine is sitting within that 10-foot boundary, bring that up on the screen. So as long as it sits within that boundary, it can go outside and then it can swing back in. We just don't want it to start and be hanging over the edge in any way. So your volunteer at the end, there's probably going to be debate over that, how that works out. I think that's more of like an ask me as it comes along question, but for the most part, things can swing outside the boundary and then come back in. That falls under the leaving boundary kind of bit, but good question. Going through, so every division is scored the exact same way. It's no longer apprentice and division one are their own thing. They're all Just make it easier. It's all scored out of 200 points. Provisions, so that everybody knows. Teams are expected to bring their own power strips and power cords. We will provide the outlets, so you'll have an outlet somewhere that you'll be able to hook into. But we expect that, just how the armory is set up, if you do make it to the World Championship, you're going to need a 25-foot cord or longer in order to hook up. From there, once you hook up into it, you can spread that power however you want, but we are expecting you to bring your own power strips, making that very clear, because there was a couple teams that forgot them, and thankfully there were some very generous teams that donated theirs. Everyone's going to get that 5-foot workstation. That's a table which you mainly to work off of, not to display your machine. If you do need a table to put your machine on top of, let your host know, let us know at Rube Inc. 4 weeks in advance. That way we can arrange it for you. Water hookups, same as last year, via bathroom sinks. Don't expect us to have a big old jug of water if you have a fish tank on your machine. If you're thinking a team didn't have a fish tank on their machine, well, I advise you to check out the 2024 contest, because one team did the Finding Nemo, where there was an aquarium, a full aquarium in their machine. It was really impressive. Judging form definitions. This year, I doubled it. I doubled the amount of things that the judges are looking for. And the reason being is the judges are going to interact far more than ever before. In fact, we're asking them to show up early in the morning. They're going to be talking with the teams. They're going to be, we want them around you pretty much most of the event before you're ever even running your machines. And that's kind of the difference with last year, where the judges showed up only while it was running. And that's because, again, they're judging this subjectively, and they're looking at a ton of different factors. The first thing, of course, is the first impression. And that truly is just, as a judge walks into the room and they look at your machine, do they go, oh my God, this is amazing? Or do they look like, okay, that's the first impression. Your overall theme is, is it a bunch of junk just laying there, or can you pick it out? Like I just mentioned, there was the Finding Nemo theme, and they had it in a dentist office, and you could see Nemo, you could see their volunteer was dressed up as the girl with the braces sitting there in the chair. You could pick out exactly what it is. A big thing to note as well, and this is an observation I made on the judging form. Last year, all the categories were judged 1 through 10. In every single regional, and even in the national contest, not a single judge selected below 6 for anything whatsoever. So what was the point of 1 through 5? Exactly. So it just seemed like if they're already going to just choose 1 through 5 anyway, let's make it 1 through 5 and then be able to open up more options. And it really lets us focus on really all the elements behind a machine, because we had there was a category that was based upon your performance, but the introduction, and there was one kind of telling the story, which presentation, the story behind your machine is really important. But there needs to be a performance. There needs to be an act. And I think the Boilermakers who are here right now, they can really attest to, they had a song and dance associated with it. And a lot of the good, or excuse me, not a lot of the good, but a lot of the teams who show up at the Nationals, those are the ones that do have these presentations. So if you're not familiar with it, again, I'll pull it up really quickly. Let's share that tab. Oh, of course, I just closed the tab. On my YouTube, there's a dedicated channel or dedicated playlist. So let's pull that up at the moment. There's a dedicated playlist to share this tab instead. Dedicated playlist to everything from the 2024 contest. So if you want to see the apprentice division, the middle school, high school, collegiate, you can see exactly what your competitors from last year did. And you can see what I mean by the storytelling aspects. And you can see what teams did really well or what they didn't do so well. Going back, however, to the collegiate, share this tab instead. Again, we really want to focus on that. We're talking dressing up. We're talking, the whole 9 yards. Yes, this is the Ballad of Breathius the Bad. Again, this very, very creative, and it was really, it was really fun. I loved that machine truly. Like I mentioned earlier, as one of the awards, is how the machine is started. We focus so much on that annual task, feeding the pet, but how is your machine being started? Last year, let's take the Boilermakers, for example, they put a sword into a stone in order to celebrate Breathiest the Bad? Are you simply just turning on a light switch, or are you kicking a ball into a soccer net, which causes your machine to start? Basically think of it as touching the machine very gently, not so interesting. Or if you dial a phone from across the room and it causes the phone to vibrate inside the machine, those are going to be those unique elements. Again, each judge is going to judge subjectively. It is their own opinion. And that kind of goes into the humor, whether a judge thinks something's funny or not, or suspenseful. Think suspense as the time delay elements. Do you have a ball that's slowly rotating and it's like, oh, it just might miss this element right there? Or does your machine just happen in 10 seconds and, the judges aren't sitting there waiting? Think of these machines as you're putting on performance. You're not just, appealing to yourselves or the judges, but the audience as well. You want to put on a good show, and a good machine has suspense. Is the machine well constructed? Are we talking duct tape, or did you actually put in, duct tape is good. I shouldn't say that. Is it mainly built out of cardboard, especially if you're at the collegiate level, or are you actually doing a little bit of woodworking associated with it? Or construction being that, think of it as the very first run, your machine works perfectly. Run 2, something breaks, and it's very obvious it breaks. Run 3, half the machine falls apart. Your construction probably wasn't very good. Take in point my 2010 machine where we had a cannon fire an 8-pound shot put. And on the second run, it fired the shot put just an inch too low, missing the cage, dropped, and then just obliterated the step below it. Our construction score would have been low that year if that category existed. So teamwork, exactly like I was saying with the judges showing up before and afterwards. They're watching you. They are looking to see how you go, how you're solving problems, how you're talking to each other. Because we do find that in the heat of the moment, teams, they might yell at each other a little bit. And the judges for sure are watching this year. Is your machine reliable? Now, it's one thing if your machine fails. That's certainly okay in a Rube Goldberg machine. In fact, when we get to the referee form, you'll notice that interventions, they're not a huge part of the score, whether an intervention means something fails in your machine. We don't really care so much if it fails. They're Rube Goldberg machines. They're not by nature supposed to work. What we care is reliability. We care about, is it going to work consistently over and over again? And if you do make it work, phenomenal. But kind of the same idea as construction, where if it works perfectly the first time, the next run you get 2 interventions, and the next one is 5 interventions. The reliability is going down. Those same things that should have been working every time are no longer working. So we're just looking for that consistency there in terms of how well it goes. Unique base design. A lot of teams will just flat out build their machines on a flat surface. And that's fine, but this year we want to reward teams who are a little bit more creative. If you're putting a back wall, if you're utilizing basically that full 10-foot cube that we're giving you, or apprentice 6-foot cube, teams that utilize more space, more likely are using a more unique base design. Did you put a roof on it and are hanging things down from the ceiling? You're going to score more points, plain and simple. Of course, risky steps. So is everything in your machine just a ball run? Ball runs are not risky. A ball just going do more than often is going to work perfectly. Whereas, again, that cannon fire I mentioned with the shot put is that ball flying through the air and then has to go into a cage. Otherwise, it's going to destroy everything. Risk. Artistry, some teams really go all out. I look to the Purdue team again to that because, well, they spend a lot of time and effort in their artistry of their machine. Actually, a lot of all the teams at the national event last year did. But we want to reward teams for that. Visibility, that last year was something in the referee category. And to be honest, it was more of a subjective thing than objective anyway. So I moved it up to here. Visibility being how well you can see every step, like I mentioned earlier. Can you see 90% of the interactions happening in the machine? You have a very visible machine. Can you see everything by standing 10 feet back? Or do you have little tiny elements? If you just have a little marble rolling and the judge from 5 feet away can't see it, not a very visible machine. Problem solving. This kind of ties in with reliability. But say you have a problem, say something goes wrong. And let me tell you, something will go wrong. It's Murphy's Law. How well did you go? How did you solve the task? Maybe you find that in your machine run that, oh, the ball just suddenly stopped rolling. And in between runs, you add a little wedge to make your machine change direction in order to get that ball rolling. You're solving a problem versus, just letting the problem consist on. And that's really what we want to see. Use of objects, same as last year with, again, how creatively are you using your everyday objects? Are you incorporating everyday objects, or are you simply, is everything made out of wood? Are you 3D printing things? We really want to see everyday objects used in creative ways. Of course, task solution, if we have a unique way of how the machine starts, we're awarding, how the overall task is solved. Pretty simple there. If you're just dumping dog food into a bowl, if it's just a cup pouring into a bowl, you can probably guarantee that that's about the most common way that that task is going to get solved this year. So come up with some unique and creative ways. Maybe again, you have your volunteer and you fling food out of the machine into their mouth. That's kind of where I'm getting at, of the volunteer may possibly be outside the boundaries. I'll clarify that as we move on. I'll talk to the regional host and see what we think about that. Complexity, are you using dominoes, or are you doing more complex things like that cannon fire? Pretty straightforward there. Unique transfers, all of that. And everything that I'm saying is on this page, just outlined a little bit more. But unique transfers of energy is a new one that's added. And a lot of these machines tend to be mechanical. They tend to be the 6 simple machines. And what we're trying to incorporate is the different energy transfers, which you can see outlined on the referee form. And that's mechanical, thermal, electrical, hydraulic, airflow, erosional, and chemical. Those are about the main 7 ones that we see in Rube Goldberg machines. And we want to see how creative people can get and incorporating those unique transfers. So it's one thing to do baking soda and vinegar, but did you use an acetone reaction instead in order to melt styrofoam? That's a really cool, interesting transition, or are you using all mechanical, so on and so forth. And the volunteer's role, that's finally entered into the scoring category. So is your volunteer just sitting there, and is he in the dog costume? Does the food get poured out, and does he just go in and grab the food? Not that exciting. Is like that one fish movie where the person's sitting inside the machine and there's something that occurs to that person in order to make the machine continue on. We're really going to be scoring that this year, and should be interesting to see. What we've really tried to do, and if you're familiar with the contest, last year we found that quite a number of teams actually scored perfect scores. Is that very Rube Goldberg-like? No. In fact, it's kind of like we want there to always be improvement. We want there to be teams that have to add more and more, especially if you're going from apprentice to the collegiate division. And so by adding more categories in both the referee and the judging form, we're actually making it so that no team really can get 100 unless it truly is a perfect machine. And so if you're scoring a 75 or an 80, where in the past you might have scored closer to 100, it's just showing you really, we're really trying to emphasize where there is room for improvement. Maybe you didn't dress up in costumes. Maybe you didn't incorporate a volunteer. Maybe it wasn't possible. Everything's still worth only 5 points, so it's not a huge detriment to your score, but just showing that there is room for improvement all throughout. Moving to the referee form, another big adjustment there is, again, that you have to have your presentation. It's timed, of course. The referee's doing everything objectively. But are you utilizing costumes and or props in your presentation? If you are, great. You get points for it. If you don't use anything, no points. The runs, same as before. If you complete the task, you get 5 points. However you complete the task, even if it takes 100 interventions, love of God, don't do that. But hey, just make sure that your task gets solved. However, and you'll get the points for this category. So same old there. You get it for the 3 tasks, the 3 run times, etc. Make sure that you stay under 3 minutes. You get the points. A little bit clearer for the interventions because there was some scoring issues last year that had to get clarified. That took a little bit of delay with the scoring time. But all 3 runs, the interventions all get totaled up. So again, let's take the example of 0, 2, and 5. You have 7 total interventions. You're going to get a total of 6 points for your score. If you get 0 interventions or get a perfect run every single time, amazing. We actually had 2 teams last year who had perfect runs all throughout. It was incredible. And they would get all full 20 points. I try to make it so that there's no minus points with it. It's everything that you do, you earn points. Just makes it clear. Simple machines. Again, this is a STEM competition, and we really wanted to highlight it this year. And so illustrating both the use of the mechanical steps, the 6 simple machines, as well as using the different energy transfers, that was one way that we could really pull it out and actually become STEM accredited with STEM.org by incorporating these things. And we don't incorporate it, you do, but incorporating it into the actual scoring of the event. And so with it, for everyone that you use, if you use it, phenomenal, you get points for it. Make sure to indicate it in your step list, as well as your energy transfers. They're going to be pretty easy to identify: mechanical, thermal, electrical, hydraulic, airflow, erosional, and chemical. Once again, illustrating that it's going to be really difficult to get a perfect score, and that's okay. If you just stick with mechanical and electrical, so be it. That's totally fine. But if you want the more points, if you want to get the 10 points in this category, try to add more. Add the fan, add that acetone reaction, have a hair dryer that has to melt an ice cube. You already have the ice cube right there. So in just saying that, we're at 6. Erosional, that can be using sand, that can be using cat litter, something of that effect. We'll get to it in a little bit, but I have a book coming out this November that really illustrates each of those very clearly. In fact, the only difference between all the referee forms, because you'll notice on the top of the judging form, it says all divisions. All divisions are scored the exact same for judging, and the referee forms, 99% the same, except for the number of steps. Like I mentioned before, keep the top as around 125 or less, but we really wanted to focus on everything else versus a high step count. So for the collegiate, in order to get the max points, you just need over 50. For high school, it is, I go back really quick because, I wrote these things. I should know it a little bit better. I believe it's 40, but I just want to make sure. Also giving me a chance to, take a drink and, stop talking for a quick second. Let's see. Because once I know high school, I know for the rest of them. There it is, 40. So if you get above 40 for high school, if you get above 30 for middle school, if you get above 20 for the apprentice division, you're going to get the full points. Again, we're trying not to focus on high step counts, but on the STEM benefits, including those different types of energy transfers, including those different simple machines all within it. Was there a volunteer incorporated? Again, yes or no. Were they included? You get the points. This one, probably going to be controversial, but again, we're really just trying to push it for success. Were dominoes or marbles included in your sequence? If you don't include them, you get the points. If you do include them in any way, shape, and form, you lose the points. Now, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, I make it very clear as to the dimensions as to what a marble is and what a domino is. So any marble is anything less than 1 inch in diameter, and anything in domino is less than 3 inches tall by 2 inches wide, 2 inches tall by 2 inches wide by 1 inch thick. So basically you think those plastic dominoes, the game dominoes, stuff like that. If we see those, you're going to lose the 5 points automatically. That is also included for the apprentice division because we're just really trying to emphasize that, number one, Rube Goldberg didn't use them in his cartoons, but 2, they're the absolute worst things to incorporate because they fail and they just have such low energy transfer from one to the next that we just don't want to see teams fail. We just, of course, if you do fail, fine, whatever, but we don't want to see it fail because of that. And teams get frustrated a lot by that. Is that marbles or marble runs? So you can have marble runs. You can certainly have the balls go back and forth, but the marble itself, the physical object of the marble, the little round thing has to be 1 inch diameter. Putting that up on the screen. So yeah, if you have a physical marble that's 1 inch or less, basically a round object, I try to make it as crystal clear as possible. Though any ball, a hollow or helical, spherical or egg-shaped object that is less than 1 inch in diameter is counted as a marble. And then for the domino, any rectangular block of any material type whose face is either blank or marked with various counts of dots, whose size is, as I mentioned before, that's considered a domino. So even if you're using little wooden blocks, just if you have an object of that size and it's used in a domino sequence or used in a marble run sequence of that size, you're going to lose those 5 points. Again, if you lose 5 points and you get perfect everywhere else, you're getting a 195 out of 200. You'll still be all right. Just, it's our little way of encouraging you not to do that. So you notice that none of the penalties were included on these forms, like I mentioned. And that's because the scorekeeper is now handling this. On it, the scorekeeper, he tallies up all the judges, which there could be a minimum of 3 judges. There could be 1 referee. And then all the penalties that we offer are now included over here. So let's go to this tab, where this is now passed to all the regional hosts. It's a dedicated form for this. Let's do the example of you have 4 judges and 1 referee present. Judge number 1 gives a score of 95 because it's objective, or subjective, excuse me. The next one gives a score of 85 points. This judge gives a score of 90 points, and the next one 85 points. Those scores are all averaged out, divided by the number of judges present, 4, and that gives an average score of 88.75. The judges and the referees both contribute 100 points to your final score. The subjective and the objective are weighed the exact same. And in the case of referees, even if you have 1, it basically should work out that all referees will have the same score. And that's basically just cross-checking themselves. So as long as 1 referee's there, totally fine, etc. Then you're going to get your final score. So you add up the referee plus the judge. But from there, you have the 3 penalties, whereby, again, if you have that outside assistance, it's a coach or a judge, or excuse me, a coach or a chaperone resets the machine. If they're assisting the team in some way that doesn't follow the rule book, you're going to lose 20 points, and that subtracts from your overall score. If your machine goes outside the boundaries when setting up, you lose those points. And then reset delays. So you're allowed up to 15 minutes. And if we have a delay of game situation, as we've talked about in the past, you lose 5 points for each infraction. So you have a chance of losing up to 50 points. And that's from the score of both the referees and the judges. And you can see that your score would end up right over there. Let's see. Can we use marbles for non-marble run purposes? It's a good question. I think how I worded it, let me just double check that I worded it the way that I wanted to word it. As long as you use them, as long as they don't roll. So if you're using marbles in terms of putting them in a bag, if you're using them as weight, if you're using them for other purposes other than a marble, or using them for other purposes, put your comment up. If you're using them for purposes that are not a marble and not domino-like you build a tower out of dominoes, or again, you fill a Pringles can with domino or with balls. As long as they don't roll, you're good. But if they do roll, not good. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Going back to the scorekeeper form, however, so again, you have the 200 points maximum. If you have all the penalties, then you lose 50 points, and then you'd have a final score of 150, and all the teams are scored as such. Excellent. I answered the Purdue team's question. Those are the best questions. I love them. Helpful hints, there's always the ones. I always try to add as much helpful things as possible. And in fact, I have a ton of educational videos out there, which, go to them really quick. But hey, look, right there, talking about dominoes right off the bat. Isn't that convenient? But I have just tons of playlists. I have all these things that I've tried to make as resources for everyone on my channel that explain everything that, everything that you need to be successful in this contest. And all of those are available in the rule book this year. You can just click on the links. You can watch the previous teams, like I mentioned. When I talk about theatrical, what do I mean by that? That's all clarified in the rule book. But again, if you have any further questions, again, as always, reach out to me. Simple machines and energy transfers spelled out a little bit further. Again, an educational video on that. My book coming out makes it much clearer about the different types of energy transfers. It's pretty simple to figure out, something that blows air. I mean, if you have something falling and it pushes something, so let's take, my napkin over here, and it, see if I can make it go. Whee! It moved from one place to the other. That's airflow. If something heats up, if there's thermal reaction, then, then that is a thermal reaction. And you can just clarify that in your step list. We'll make it more clear as we go throughout. Obviously, right now it's September. We have until February before the contest actually starts. So I'll make sure to clarify everything as much as possible. When people have questions, I add that to the rulebook as we go. Always making sure that you're building a Rube Goldberg machine, because we find that a lot of people build chain reactions on accident. And the big difference being is they're creating something that isn't funny and or ridiculous. Last year, take, for example, putting toothpaste on a toothbrush. If you just have a brick and a fall, or let's just say that something falls and it squeezes the toothpaste onto the toothbrush. Fine, you completed the task. But let's say that you coated the inside of a trash can with toothpaste all around the edges, and then you knock the toothbrush into the trash can, for which then you have to grab it out of the trash can and brush your teeth with it out of the trash. That's funny and or ridiculous, depending on your view. And that's what elevates it to that Rube Goldberg status. Crazy contraptions, I'm not worried about anybody doing that for the contest, because, well, you're missing that chain reaction element of one step triggering the next. If your machine is more than 50% dominoes, it's considered a domino topple. And if your machine is more than 50% balls rolling, just marbles going back and forth, you've created a ball run. You've created a marble run with chain reaction elements added to it. So just avoid that. That happens on occasion where a team just really goes all out with ball runs, and we're just, Rube Goldberg contest. What to build on. I'm going to try to make an educational video this year on how to do a machine base that's really good to be transported. The Purdue team especially does a great job. We're building on plywood sheets with 2x4s around the base, and then separating it, because you are allowed 10 feet, making it into 2 5-foot sections. That's going to be great for sticking it in a box truck or the back of somebody's truck, if you need to, so on and so forth. But just really trying to make it that these things are portable, because where you build it isn't where you're going to be competing if you are doing the live contest. Mentioned that in the travel. When you get to the Purdue Armory, if you do make it to the World Championships, thankfully the floors are very level. You don't have to worry about that. But you do have to think about, do you want your machine sitting flat on the floor, or do you want to bring tables? Do you want to sit it on top of something? And it's also, if you want to sit it up higher and have the audience see it. We're working on having platforms for each of the teams. It does depend on how many teams show up, because, if we have 40 teams, each platform is a sizable cost. And at the moment, it's, again, we try to do everything at the Rube Goldberg Institute for free. So, we don't have the biggest budgets in the world, but we are making it, we're trying to make it as best as possible without being anything like, God, if you've ever done Destination Imagination, those registration fees are pretty impressive, where it's around $3,000 to $4,000 for the teams just to go to their national contest. $4,000, and that's on top of their annual registration dues, on top of their memberships. It's pretty crazy. Odyssey of the Mind is a great example of a very reasonably priced program. We're actually hopefully partnering with the Odyssey of the Mind group. But again, for us, we're about one of the lowest cost STEM activities that you could do. So yes, we're just trying to make it affordable so that you can focus on your design, focus on travel. And of course, there's the frequently asked questions. You can read through these at your leisure. But with it, it's an amazing contest. It's an incredible opportunity for anybody that's not been a part of it. Let's go back to just me. The Rube Goldberg Machine Contest, there's a reason why I've been doing it for 30 years. It's one of the best STEM activities you could be doing for your students. It encourages teamwork, educational benefits of, again, all the STEM elements, science, technology, engineering, and math. They're all incorporated while doing a Rube Goldberg machine. And studies have proven that Rube Goldberg education is beneficial to just basically anyone in grade school. I believe the study said specifically 5th through 7th, but then I recently read a study that said even starting all the way back in kindergarten. It's something that I'm really just trying to get out there to the world. I want to make it accessible to anybody, and that's why we have our whole host of programs, from our flagship, the contest that I just spent an hour talking about, to, if you're a designer and you love drawing, you can do the cartoon contests or the playground. You can do the online contest. If you're not able to travel to our main one, or you can do the Unreal Engine or Minecraft. We have hopefully everything, or at least something, for someone out there. Before I wrap up, are there any other questions? Purdue, are you still there? And if not, I will wrap up in a second. But I just want to wish everyone the absolute best this year. I hope everyone, I hope everyone knocks it out of the park like they did last year, because it was an amazing contest, and I'm really happy to see it. With it though, all right, no other questions. I want to thank you all and have a wonderful night. Again, my next live is going to be on Wednesday, October 2nd at 7 p.m. With it, have a good night. They don't have any more questions, by the way, so take care, guys. Thank you, as I failed to end the stream right away. Take care.